Today on Mother Mayhem.
You are indeed the cycle breaker in your family, and you should be so proud of yourself for that. Welcome back to Mother Mayhem, the podcast for daughters of narcissistic and emotionally limited mothers. I'm your host, Heather Gray. And today's episode, daughters, well, it is one that makes me really proud of Mayhem and of everything we've been building together across the span of 2 years and almost 100 episodes. Right now, I get to introduce you to today's daughter, Coraline. And Coraline totally picked her own name for the show. She named herself Coraline after the movie with the same name. Coraline was fed a web of lies by the other mother. And, well, once you hear our daughter Coraline's story, you're going to see that the shoe fits. And now, let me tell you what makes this episode so special and so important for me. A few weeks ago, you were all introduced to Jo in her journey of moving towards lower or no contact with her mom. Shortly after I finished recording that episode, but before it had actually aired, I received an email from Coraline with her story. And Coraline was also trying to find a way toward no contact with her mom. I encouraged Coraline to listen to Jo's episode when it came out and then see what questions she had afterwards, because this is what I know to be true about this conversation. There is no straight line to no or lower contact, and we know it looks different for all of you. And I knew that Jo's story wasn't going to create an open and shut case for going low or no contact, but instead that it would illustrate the pain, the hurt, the grief, the doubt, and all of the confusion that comes with this journey, with this decision, and with these kinds of conversations. And to be clear, here at Mayhem, we meet you where you're at. There is no mandate to go no contact. There's no expectation, and you are not doing recovery wrong if you're staying in a relationship with your mom. My only goal in our conversations is to get you to feel safe in your nervous systems, to feel safe in your bodies, and to be able to access self-trust in regards to your moms. Some of you will be able to do so while you're in contact, and some of you won't be able to disconnect because of financial or legal manipulations your moms have been pulling. And still, some of you will stay because it is consistent within your values to stay. And as you'll hear in Coraline's story and disentangling herself from her mom, she has to untangle herself from the burden and the guilt her mom creates in threatening suicide. She also has to manage and understand that separating herself from her mom means separating and moving further away from her brother and her father, because both of them continue to allow her mother's drama into their lives. There is no easy way out of this, and you all know this, and all of you hold it together. I know this conversation isn't easy, but what this conversation does is highlight that all of you are truly in this community of women who are working to make sense of things that are impossible to make sense of. And you're all doing it together across episodes, across conversations, across time zones, and across continents. And as always, please allow me to remind you that while it might be comfortable to be listening to this podcast all on your own in the privacy of your own space, this is not work you have to do alone, and it is work that you shouldn't be doing alone. If you need help, support, or company on the path, this is your weekly reminder that Mayhem is now more than a podcast. We have built a support network for you around the show. You are always welcome to join either of our weekly groups. We have Tuesday group, our flagship group that started it all, and we also have its sister, Thursday group. Both are weekly drop-in style groups that meet you where you're at, allow you to be heard or helped, and support you in your recovery. We also have Mayhem Daughters, a resource that exists for support, company, and discussions on the path between our episodes. If you have any questions on whether or not group or the community are the right spot for you, you are always welcome to reach out to me at heather@daughtersnpd.com. And now, here's Coraline. I found Mayhem this past September, right around the time I decided to go low contact with my mom. This podcast has been a true source of validation for me and the perfect supplement to the work I'm doing with my therapist. Sharing my story with you allows me to own myself and my past. So I'm taking a deep breath and going for it. I am the 35-year-old wife of my high school sweetheart. He is my rock and my best friend. He gets me and he gets my mom and is my compass when she turns my world all upside down. I am the mother of 3 beautiful boys. They are the reason I have put in the work to understand myself, face my childhood trauma, and create a new way forward for myself, because I do not want to pass my trauma along to them. I'm a postpartum nurse who helps women become mothers each and every shift. So to say that I feel pressure to get this healing process, quote unquote, right is an understatement. And of course, I am the daughter of my narcissistic mother, my father, and sister to my younger brother. Growing up, I never felt like I fit in with my peers. My clothes were not quite right. I never had the latest childhood trends. And while I was a decent student, I never had the right school supplies. And friendships were hard. It seemed I would make a friend, and then after a few play dates, it would fizzle out. Heather, I always felt like there was something wrong with me, and I just couldn't get it right. Then there was my home life. My parents fought all the time. My mother would rage at my father and then sob uncontrollably. He would scream back at her, and she would take us to her parents' house so that my dad could, quote unquote, cool off. While we were there, she would trash talk him, blaming him for everything. I was young and believed her completely. My mother would fight with her siblings and parents too. And while this did not feel good to me, I thought it was normal. My mother would always trash talk my dad's parents and siblings, calling them eccentric whack jobs or hillbillies, and so I never really felt close to any of them. In fact, I saw my relationship to them as a stain. And as my parents' marriage dissolved, I was around 10, my mother would cry to me about how horrible my father was, how he was such an angry man and couldn't provide for us. She would ask me for the answers to her problems. Should she divorce him? Could she make him change? If they divorced, where would we live? This placed an unbelievable amount of stress on me. I remember trying to solve it all, feeling like I had to save our family. Once they were divorced, she moved out. She had gone out to celebrate her freedom and met a man at a bar. Yes, she latched on to the first poor soul to look her way. I don't have the time to get into that, but it was 20 years of dysfunction with him as well. Now my brother and I lived with our dad, and things were pretty orderly. The house was calm, we had home-cooked meals every night, and my dad did a pretty damn good job at balancing work and kids and running a home. He had no trouble providing for us. We lived in a nice house with a pool in a very nice town, and he rarely raised his voice. The problem was, I hated him. I had spent years by my mother's side, listening to her trash him, and I blamed him for the divorce. And I hated her for leaving us with him. After all those days and nights of crying to me, asking me for the answers to all of her problems, she left. For a man she barely knew. There was no set custody agreement, and her mom was free to come and go as she pleased. In the beginning, we spent every other weekend with her. She had moved in with the man from the bar, and I refused to spend the night at his house, so she would take us to her parents' house. At first, she would stay there too, but after a while, she would just drop us off there in favor of spending time with him. It wasn't long before my grandparents got tired of having us dumped off at their place, and so we just stayed at home with Dad, and he didn't mind. During this time, I got to know my dad's family and realized that they were really nice people. They were kind and loving and very, very stable. And I grew to be comfortable with my dad. It turns out all of my happy childhood memories are with him. But I was 12 and going through puberty was really hard, especially with a mom like mine. She completely ignored the obvious changes I was going through, and I never felt comfortable talking to her about anything, especially things that made me feel awkward or insecure. I had to buy my first bra with birthday money on a clandestine mission to the mall, and when she noticed the strap showing ever so slightly through my shirt, she called me a slut. When I got my period, she gave me a gigantic maternity pad to wear. I complained that it was too big, but she told me I would ruin my clothes with a smaller one. Tampons would pop my cherry, and boys wouldn't like me. I was embarrassed, like my changing body was something to be ashamed of. And I had crippling anxiety, so afraid to make the wrong move, to be bad. I played by the rules. I didn't drink. I didn't smoke. I didn't hang out with boys. I was trying to be a good girl, trying to make her happy. Nope, wrong. She made it clear to me that she thought I was pathetic for never going to parties, for not having a boyfriend. She repeatedly asked me if I was a lesbian, and to be clear, I do not and never have felt that being a lesbian is wrong. Only I'm not, so it really hurt that she would ask me that. I finally did get a boyfriend at 17, and although we took a break in college, I knew he was the one because, like I said in the beginning, Heather, he got me. He knew me then as a hot mess teenager with mother issues and loved me. I spent my late teens and 20s feverishly trying to manifest the stable life that I wanted for myself. I got my nursing degree and I ladder climbed my way into one of the top hospitals in the country. I bought my own home and in time married the love of my life. These years were generally good. The tumultuous days of my youth were behind me. I was busy in my career, traveling, and in the fall of 2019, I gave birth to our first son. The night I became a mother was a pivotal moment for me. I only wanted my husband there because my mom is incapable of supporting me, and this was a moment I wanted drama-free. She showed up at the hospital, and when she was not allowed in the room and the nurses would not disclose any information to her, Heather, she exploded. This is the hospital I work at. My colleagues, they were being as nice to her as they could, but she was screaming and crying and threatened a security guard. They needed to know what to do about her because she was causing a scene. I told them I didn't care what happened to her, that I was focused on myself and my baby. So they told her to leave immediately. The guy from the bar, by then my stepfather, had to haul her out of there over his shoulder, kicking and screaming like a toddler. I delivered our son, but had some serious complications. Weak and exhausted, I held him, and I realized that I loved him more than I had ever loved another human. I would do anything to protect him. And the next morning, as I stared at my pale reflection in the bathroom mirror, I cried because I realized I loved my son in a way that my mother had never loved me. I was in pain and had never felt so fragile in all my life. She showed up at the hospital again. This time, get this, everyone, dressed in a full-length evening gown, heels, full glam hair and makeup, and every jewel she owned. Of course she did, Coraline. Nothing makes a narcissist like a family event. Oh my Moses. All right. She was stopping in to take photos of the baby before going to a celebratory dinner. Here I was, curled up in a hospital bed, and she didn't even say hello to me. She oohed and she awed over the baby. He's beautiful. He looks just like me, she said. I felt physically ill. Well, Coraline, I think a lot of us listening to this know exactly how you felt in this moment, and our bellies are kind of turning a little bit too here. Just the sight of her standing there, smiling at him, made me want to vomit. If getting out of bed hadn't already been so difficult, I would have taken him right out of her arms. Within 6 months, we were in the middle of the pandemic. And as the world was isolating, my husband and I, desperate for childcare, allowed my mom to be the sole outside person in our home. She was at my house 5 days a week. And that extreme high contact mixed with the new stress of motherhood and being a nurse in a pandemic, well, I was suffering. Whew. Of course you were, Coraline. Of course you were. My anxiety was at an all-time high. I was having panic attacks at work and was in total mama bear mode. I was terrified of allowing my son to explore and grow because he might get sick or he might get hurt, and I spent my days finding clever ways to keep him in a bubble. Luckily, my husband had the clarity to see that this hypervigilance was a coping mechanism and encouraged me to find a therapist. So I got some help, and over the last 5 years, I've had 2 more sons, and I have learned so much. Having my own children has been in many ways like holding a mirror up to my trauma. It forces me to look it in the eye when they're tantruming, or when they're making friends, or when unpacking their backpack, and triple check to make sure they have everything they need. I slowly learned that my anxiety and fears were based around all the lies, manipulation, and neglect I was subjected to under the guise of love from my narcissistic mother. With this knowledge has come an incredible amount of grief and pain. All those friendships I so badly desired as a child, they didn't just fizzle out. My mom sabotaged them. My aunts and uncles and grandparents are not eccentric freaks my mother made them out to be. They are kind, loving intellectuals that she felt inferior to. We weren't too poor for school supplies. My mom just didn't care to buy them. And my dad isn't a monster, but my mother is. I now know that my mom will never respect, support, or love me in the ways that I deserve. With the help of my therapist, I'm learning how to regulate my own emotions and how to model healthy coping for my kids. The fear of generational trauma does make an appearance now and then, but I'm proud to say that my kids are thriving. As I mentioned in the beginning, I've gone low contact, and to be completely candid, it's a shit show. Usually is, sister. Usually is. My mom does not accept that I will not pick up the phone whenever she calls, and does not accept that she cannot enter my house whenever she wishes. She's told me that if she can't see or talk to me whenever she wants, then she might as well kill herself. She's called my in-laws to try to stage an intervention for me. She blows up my phone with calls and texts multiple days a week. She enlists my dad and brother to check on me when I ignore her. She calls my husband to accuse him of controlling me. It has not been easy, but I don't miss the dysregulation and discomfort in my body that her presence causes. I like having peace in my day. So I end this letter with a question for you, Heather. Where do I go from here? Is my goal to come to a place where I can cut the cord with her, or to reach a level of healing where I remain emotionally regulated around her? I know this was a long read, and I thank you so very much for your time. With gratitude to you and all of the daughters before me. Whew. Coraline. Oh my goodness. Okay. So that is where Coraline's first letter ended. And then Joe's story came out, and this is what Coraline had to share next. I've listened to episode 92 and taken some time to think about what it brings up for me. As you previously had said, there are a lot of similarities in Joe's story and mine. Her grief and loss are so real, and I totally understand that deep, nagging desire to have a close and loving relationship with her parents. At the end of my letter to you, where I shared my story, I posed the question of whether I should remain low contact with my mom or go full no contact, and I'm beginning to tease out why I feel so conflicted about it. During a session with my therapist, we talked about some of the things my mom has done since I have reduced my exposure to her, one of them being threatening suicide. My therapist asked me how I would feel if my mom had actually followed through with her threats. My response was that I would feel guilty and responsible for her death. I would feel shame and regret that the rest of the family would grieve her loss because I couldn't just put up with her bullshit. After that session, I thought, what the hell is wrong with me? Why didn't I even consider that if my mom killed herself, I would grieve and feel sadness? That thought had never entered my mind. So next session, I immediately raised my concerns that I was somehow a sociopath that would not grieve my mom's death. And my therapist said, the grieving part is something I've already done. Nice job, Coraline's therapist. Nice job. I grieved the loss of ever having a true, no strings attached, loving relationship with my mom. And I agree. I don't miss her. My quality of life is better without her. I feel regulated and safe. So it is not a fear of losing her that's keeping me from totally pulling the plug. It's a fear of losing my dad and my brother, who are deep in her web. In my letter, I talked about how my parents divorced 23 years ago, that they had had a very unconventional divorce agreement. There was no binding custody agreement, no child support, no alimony. My mother did not take my father to the cleaners for every penny he had, did not fight to keep us kids in her care. And as a result, she kept my dad as her friend. He never resented her or prevented her from coming over to the house. She was free to come and go, throw large pool parties and holiday gatherings at what was no longer her home. She could spend time with my brother and I whenever she wanted, and she had a place to stay when she was fighting with my stepfather. She had manipulated him into allowing her to maintain her position as the woman of the house for many years. Today, my dad lives with his long-term girlfriend of 20 years in a home they bought together. He still allows my mom to stay with him in the guest room when she's having a rough patch in her life. He invites her to every barbecue, every holiday. He even agreed to take her on vacation with them to Europe. He is in so deep. Oh my goodness, Coraline. Yes, he is. After all this time, I don't know how his girlfriend stands for it. Neither do I. Side note, my stepfather died a year ago, but he was also frequently seen around my dad's house. My father is incapable of saying no because he doesn't want to cause a meltdown. So if I choose to have holidays and vacations without her, I'm choosing them without him too. And that's really hard for me. These days, we have a very close relationship, and he is a loving, supportive grandfather to my kids. I want holidays and family vacations with him, but he can't cut the cord. As I write this, he's hosting a Memorial Day barbecue with my brother and his wife and my mom. We decided not to attend. It's the fear of losing my dad and my brother that keeps me in contact with my mom so that I don't totally miss out on these family moments. Holidays and vacations with my mom are horrible. I don't want to repeat history, having my mom ruin these things for my kids. So I guess my revised question is, how do I go no contact without losing the rest of my family as collateral damage? Thank you for reading. I can't believe how much this space takes up on a page and in my mind. Whew. Okay, everyone, deep breath. Deep breath, Coraline. We're going to help you. I am so glad you reached out. And I know that the way we did this for your episode made it so that you have had to wait a good long while for this discussion. And I so appreciate your patience on that. But more so, I really appreciate your willingness to be so open and to really be in this conversation with all of us. And just like Joe's episode meant so much to so many daughters, I know yours is going to too, because you are by no means the only daughter that has lived or is living with this kind of tension, this kind of in your bones knowing that fully protecting your peace may need to mean changes in relationships with people you do love. And of course, the tension that comes when emotionally manipulative people threaten suicide as a way of maintaining control in a relationship. You're handling and juggling a whole heck of a lot. And I know you have a lot of big decisions to make here. But before we go into all of that, I just want to spend some time with you on your story, because here is what is so incredibly clear to me. You have already done the hard thing again and again, not just in choosing low contact, not just in surviving what you've lived through, but in telling the truth. And not just any truth, the kind that was denied, that was distorted and disqualified throughout your entire childhood. The kind you just heard me talking about and naming with Charlie in a recent episode. It's the kind that some daughters spend a lifetime trying to name, come to grips with, and manage. You are landing in the kind of truth that requires or will likely benefit from a regulated nervous system and an ability to see the bullshit amidst all of the smoke and mirrors your mom is creating. You have already done so much here to save your own life, and it is really, really unfair that you have to do more. It really, honestly, it sucks what life asks of you daughters sometimes, and this is most certainly one of those times. Coraline, your childhood, it asked way too much of you way too soon. You held your mom's pain when no child should have to, and then blamed yourself when you couldn't fix it because no one took the time to tell you that her BS wasn't your fault or your responsibility. You ended up bearing the total emotional burden of her chaos, her cruelty, and her confusion, and still somehow you were able to find your way forward. You didn't just white knuckle it through, even though I'm sure there were moments of white knuckles. You built a life, and it is beautiful. It is intentional, and I can tell how it is rooted in love and safety and in accountability. You are indeed the cycle breaker in your family, and you should be so proud of yourself for that. You, Coraline, are the generational curse breaker, and your children are only meeting the healing or healed version of you. What an incredible gift you have given them. What an incredible commitment you have shown to them. That work is not easy. It forces all of you daughters to stare down the most impossible of things and contradictions. And you have to hold both so many times. And sometimes you are forced to hold multitudes Of course, you feel tired in your bones, sister, and you are probably so weary and so quarter past done. You, my friend, have been in battle and you are battle weary. You have gotten yourself so far, and it is a total privilege that Mayhem gets to keep you company on this part of the path and help you go a little bit further. You are the one who said, "Not my children." You are the one who went to therapy, who found language for the unspeakable. You learned how trauma speaks through anxiety. And, Coraline, you made a plan to do something about it. And I hear something in your letters. You are crystal clear. You are in pain, and this is hard, but you are clear. You have already grieved so much of this. So let me also be clear on something. Clarity does come with grief. When things are true and immovable, and you have that in your bones moment of knowing, those lights, well, they don't just dawn over Marblehead. The clouds don't just part open for light to immediately shine through. And yes, of course, you see things clearly, but those things hurt. And I know all of that. And Mayhem can hold all of that with you. You've been able to tangle yourself a little bit from the guilt and the responsibility that comes from your mom's threats of suicide. And I can see how you have like the awareness and the grace for your father's enmeshment in all of this, as well as your brother's silence. But as you're learning, grace comes with a price. While you are accepting of them, you're also now finding yourself managing the loneliness that comes from being on the outside looking in. You see their limitations and what they're incapable of, but they can't appreciate what it does to you to be around your mom's chaos and her toxicity. And I know you've been in therapy for a bit of time now, but I want to point something else out here. Not just for you, but for all of the other daughters who share and relate to your story, because what is true for you is true for them too. I want to name something really clearly. What you've endured is chronic, cumulative, relational trauma. And I know that's a whole lot of psychobabble. What you've done in response to all of that isn't just survival. That is what healing looks like in all of its confusing and contradictory pieces. It isn't glossy, it's gut-wrenching. It comes from telling the truth, even though you grew up in a world where you were often punished for knowing the truth. And I get that this sounds like all dramatic and clickbaity, and I don't mean it to be. And you guys know that I'm not above adding a touch of drama to emphasize a point. But I imagine a little bit here, Coraline, that this is the kind of work that either changes the shape of your soul because there is a clear before and after of not knowing and then knowing. Or perhaps it cements the edges of your soul to confirm and affirm who you are and who you have always been. Because, Coraline, here is what I see and hear in your story. For the past several years, you have been mothering your children and remothering yourself at the same time. You had no template, no model to go from, so you went and you made your own. And I want you to know, too, that all the evidence suggests that even without Mayhem, I know you could figure out the right answer for yourself, too. But I am grateful for the opportunity to offer you a soft place to land and hopefully more than one moment where you can exhale. So settle in. I think I can guide you through how to approach this next part. First, let's just get the hairy, scary thing out of the way. Your mom has a history of making suicidal threats in an effort to grab your attention, to shift the narrative, and to inform your behavior. And yes, a lot of daughters listening are in this moment with you too, because they too have been on the receiving end of this kind of treatment. And they know what you know, that it is a manipulative tactic, and it is one that yields power if you let it. So let's talk about the tactic. When someone uses threats of suicide to control your behavior or your relationship with them, we're not just talking about emotional distress. All of you, as you're hearing me set the table on this, can hear what we're talking about. It's emotional extortion. This isn't the same as your mom's reaching out in a moment of crisis or despair. This is a pattern that they're using deliberately to collapse or shred your boundaries, to override your needs, and to then also, in the same breath and in the same moment, trigger your deepest fears of abandonment, guilt, and harm. And then when that someone is your mom, it's just beyond cruel because it weaponizes the most vulnerable part of you that you introduced us to earlier. The part of you who is the daughter that was trained to take responsibility for her mom's emotional state. You were the daughter who was never allowed to just be a child. So when your mom says, if I can't have access to you, I might as well kill myself, that isn't love. That is coercion, and it's disguised as a crisis. That is shame used as a tether. And of course, that puts you in an incredible, god-awful double bind. You have to save her or be the villain. But here's the truth you are learning to stand in already. You are not responsible for her behavior, and you are only responsible for your own boundaries. You are allowed, Coraline, and all of you daughters listening and sharing the struggle with Coraline, all of you are allowed to protect your peace. You're allowed to need distance. You're allowed to say no to these patterns that dysregulate you, even if she spirals. And that isn't being cruel towards her. That's being discerning. It's self-preservation. And if she's truly in a crisis, that isn't yours to manage either. There are hotlines, hospitals, and quite frankly, licensed professionals better equipped for all of that. When someone uses threats of suicide as a tactic, it isn't just manipulative, it is destabilizing. It creates that entire false sense of urgency, and it's intended to override your wise mind, to make it so you can't possibly stop and think, but just react, hopefully, of course, in her favor. So your work here, it's not to prove that you're a good daughter. Your work is to stay grounded, to get support, and to refuse to be pulled into that panic spiral. And you've already started doing that, Coraline. You are building a life where your safety matters, but I think it would help you to have words for what to say in these moments, because there's a difference between knowing that all of this is true and knowing that all of it can be true for you too, but also knowing what the F you're supposed to say about it. So let's play it out loud. Let's just walk you through it here, right? Let's play it out if you hear the threat directly. Mom, if you are talking suicide, you have to know I'm not equipped for that. I can help bring babies in the room, but suicide, that's a different department. If your pain feels that bad, you should really call 911. Do you need me to do that for you? Do you have immediate urges that we need professionals to know about? To respond to the sort of implications and allegations that you don't care, you might say something like, of course I care, Mom. Of course I don't want you taking your own life. But lots of people have lost people to suicide that they care about, because when it comes to suicidal ideation, being cared about isn't enough. My care doesn't actually have that kind of superpower, even if you think it does. Well, and then what do you do if she persists? It's going to be your call here, and I've coached daughters through both of this. But if you want to just not worry about it and truly put it in the hand of professionals, you can call authorities and report what your mom is saying and let them handle it. Or if you feel comfortable doing so, you can tell your mom, I really hope you don't make that choice. I don't want that for you. And then you disengage. Mom, this is above my pay grade. You're talking about dying, and I am just not comfortable, so I need to hang up now. I hope you feel better soon. Now, what do you end up doing if the pressure comes from your dad or your brother? And hopefully, Coraline, you were able to already hear my episode from last week. I went on a little bit of a mini rant about boundaries, and I reminded all of you last week about how boundaries teach people how to be in relationship with us. And right now, your next task is going to be teaching your father and your brother how to be in relationship with you, given the new boundaries that you're working on instilling with your mom. So it might sound something like, Dad or brother, I know it's scary when mom talks like this. I know it makes everyone want to jump and save and rescue, but we have to see and own that we don't have that kind of power. If we did, it would have worked by now. And Dad, let's be honest, she is a hot mess, and she has always been a hot mess, regardless of how much love is poured into her. There's nothing I can do to make it easier for her to be in her skin or to live her life. If there were, it would have worked by now, because Lord knows I've tried. I'm not going to sign mom's contract that implies her life can be saved by relationship with me. I'm not responsible for her or her choices. So here's what I can offer. If you are really scared for her and her well-being, call the professionals. Call 911. Let the professionals manage her. And if you aren't really concerned, then please don't let her manipulate you into thinking you're saving her. I also need you to know that going forward, I do not want you to pass on any information from her. I don't want to know what she says to you, what she thinks of me, or what she is asking of me. Neither of you are her secretary. I know that not being her messenger will make you nervous and scared and anxious, but I have 3 kids and a family that I am responsible for. I am not responsible for mom's life or the choices she makes in it, and I cannot manage your feelings around her choices. That is for the 2 of you to sort through. I respect that you're in connection with her. I need you to respect that this is a choice that works for you, but that it doesn't work for me. And I hope you can respect that, even if you wish it were different. And now, Coraline, as I'm saying this to you, I know my scripts are super annoying. I can unapologetically own that for all of you, because they sound all perfect TV movie of the week, and they don't ever allow for people to get a word in edgewise, and I can always tie them up with a bow, but I'm doing it in that way, not just because this is a podcast, but to help all of you see the arc and the path I'm trying to get you all on. Even if you need to insert your more real life language into it, so it will feel more true to you. I want you to see that you can set boundaries by telling people what you want them to think and by simply telling them your truth. That spiel I just did, it teaches your dad and your brother how to be in relationship with you without changing their relationship with your mother? Might they feel anxious because they're used to passing their worry on to you to manage their angst and their worry? Of course, that isn't on you. You are no more responsible for their emotional limitations than you are for your mom's, even though you're in relationship with them and not your mom. Your dad and your brother, we all know this. They are dealing with their own trauma brains, and their trauma brains are telling them this and that, and they have them believing that if they just do that, your mother will A, B, or C. But we all know it just doesn't work like that. And unfortunately, your dad and your brother, they haven't figured that part out for themselves yet. And it's like horses, right? You can bring them to water, but you cannot make them drink. And finding your path with all of this is always going to mean protecting your peace. That is the only way you are going to be successful in maintaining a relationship with both of them. And that brings me to the next part. How do we solve a problem like your father and brother? Anybody else thinking of Sound of Music and solving a problem like Maria with that reference? How do you stay in relationship with them without being in relationship with your mother? Well, that script and spiel I just offered you gives you a bit of a preview. You do it with your boundaries. Your boundaries are going to teach them how to be in relationship with you. So if you've decided to go no or lower contact with your mom, you're going to tell them, I've made the decision that my relationship with mom is unhealthy for me in its current state. I have decided ... And then you are going to inform them of whatever limits are that you have decided. Then you're going to recognize that they've made different choices and you're not asking them to, but you are informing them that going forward, you do not wish to be in a room with your mom, at a holiday with her there, or at a gathering. If they're going to have a holiday or a gathering with your mom, you will all need to find an alternate time to get together. So you'll see them before Christmas or you'll see them after Christmas. You won't do the Memorial Day barbecue. You will meet them some other time. People, Coraline, are only capable of meeting us as far as they have met themselves. And honestly, it doesn't really sound like your dad or your brother have met themselves very far. You're not going to be able to get them to meet you very far. And yes, that does mean that more grief is unfortunately coming your way. And I wish that wasn't true, but this is where they are. And all you can do is accept that about them and meet yourself where you are at with what you need. And around here, we show people grace, but we keep them in their place. You are going to be challenged, tested, and they will try to cajole you, but just keep it simple. I know you disagree. I know you wish this wasn't true. I know you just think that this is how she is, but how she is doesn't work for me. I'm not asking you to change and move to my side. I can only ask that you not ask me that either. Coraline, I also want you to hear me on something. You have done enough. You do not have to do anymore. You have looked at this. You have gone to therapy. You have tried your absolute fucking best, and this is where you landed. And you, Mayhem daughter, you get to be done. Coraline, I'm pounding my fist on my leg right now. I don't know what that's doing to audio. Clark might be going cuckoo. But you have tried enough. You have done enough, and you, sister, get to be done. And I don't think you needed me to say that because I can hear in both of your letters so much self knowing, so much self trust, and a lot of self acceptance. But for the days when you find that it wavers, when you doubt, or when your inner critic pops in, let me sign the permission slip for you. It is okay to be done. It is okay to protect your peace. It is okay to be boundaried with yourself. It is okay to build new traditions, to welcome more people into the family that you choose to fill the holes with on the harder days. And it is okay to move even further away. You get to be done. This is hard, hard work. I have just immeasurable respect for how far you've already come before we've even met. And I am so grateful that you have welcomed Mayhem in to be a part of this journey with you. Coraline, I really hope you felt the company on the path because unfortunately, I do know that your story is shared by far too many daughters. All of you are in this community of women around the world who are in this with you. And I, for sure, most definitely, am always in it with you too. Bye for now. I do hope you enjoyed today's conversation. If you have a question you'd like me to consider for the show, please do email me over at heather@daughtersnpd.com. You are always welcome to share your story or questions by recording yourself using the voice app on your phone. For best recording quality, please do record directly into your phone without using headphones or Bluetooth speakers. We're building an incredible community as well over on Instagram, and I'd love to see you over there too. You can find us at Daughters NPD. Lastly, if you love what you've been hearing here on Mayhem and have found the show helpful in your own trauma recovery, please do consider becoming a Mother Mayhem sponsor by purchasing simple scripts for saying hard things. It's a resource I created that provides the right words for the hard conversations, and it covers life, love, and work. You'll find a link for that in the show notes. If you know another woman who needs this conversation in her life, please do share the show with her. Your reviews and social shares help spread the word, and I hope you'll consider doing so. Special thanks to Heather Clark for editing the show. She's in my head and knows what I meant to say when the words come out backwards. Thanks so much for your time today. As always, I'm in it with you. Bye for now.